Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Boy, that was an exciting match. England topping Australia. I know there's a lot of people rooting for Australia, but England, the better team this morning. And I'm so grateful that you were patient for this live broadcast of Frankly Speaking. Thank you for joining us. So we don't have as much time, obviously, this morning, about 45 minutes. We'll get to as much as we can. Yesterday, Maggie Hall from Big Fox News at 10 and myself went to a press conference at the, it was at the Elmira City Hall, but it was with Congressman Nick Langworthy. He was joined by Assemblyman Chris Friend, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, Senator Tom O'Mara, Mayor Dan Mandel. It was a really good press conference. It was about the migrant issue affecting the country, but also obviously the New York State aspect of it. So we're going to play a clip that Maggie put together from Big Fox News at 10 to show you what the congressman had to say. We also have a lot to talk about with Trump. We have some New York State issues as well. I do want to take a break right off the jump, but before that, here is our contact information. Please reach out to me. On tomorrow's program, we'll be talking with Tim Colpine. He's going to join us to talk about an opportunity for you to house youth hockey players. They're in need, kind of like when we talked to Elisa and Sylvia. It's not for quite as long of a period, but I think a neat opportunity for you if that's something that would interest you. We'll talk with him tomorrow. And then on Friday, we'll be talking with Stephen Shaw Jr. He's going to tell us about, and it's perfect time for it, NASCAR Bourbon in honor of Watkins Glen NASCAR weekend. So that is on Friday. We've got a busy show. We got to get to as much as we possibly can. So I'm going to take my first break, and then we'll be back to talk about the issues of the day. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We'll be right back. I'm glad that promo just played, because it's a good way to remind you that we will be back on at our normal time tomorrow and Friday, and from here on out, as a matter of fact, at 7 a.m. I hope that you'll join us. And if you are joining us from that exciting soccer action, and this is your first time catching Frankly Speaking, well, thank you. I think that you'll really enjoy it. Arguably the best program on television. Okay, let's go to some of the issues of the day. According to The Hill, former President Trump's momentum shows few signs, if any, of waning, despite all of these legal storms. There's an interesting article from the New York Post. Good morning, from the New York Post that kind of outlines the time frame on this, the calendar of how it'll affect all these court cases, how it'll affect various parts of the former president's campaign. So that's. Okay, yes, early morning. It's early morning, so we got people coming in. It's excitement in the studio. So we'll be talking a little bit about that time frame. We also have a couple opinion pieces on, from really both sides, suggesting that it's a disaster if Republicans stay connected to Trump in some way. And there's the other side, which even some of his opponents are saying, criticizing, of course, what they call a political prosecution and political persecution. But again, as we have said, and we said it with the former Congressman Joe Semplinsky, that each time there's an indictment, it doesn't seem to negatively affect Trump. If anything, it increases his polling and his fundraising. But again, I think the biggest detriment is going to be that time frame with when the court cases are happening as compared to like the vote in Iowa. And will he be able to campaign? We know whether you are a Trump supporter or not, he was a very busy campaigner. Sometimes 2 or 3 of those rallies in one single day. Without that, and we know that the media is not going to cover those rallies like they used to, because they realized what they thought was kind of a circus or a clown show was actually speaking to a lot of people. And when they thought, because they're in their media bubble, that it was something to laugh at, of course, many others were taking what he was saying to heart. So they won't cover it like they used to, but still just the fact of him being with voters, all politics is local, and that's exactly what those rallies were. So again, polls showing very few signs of any kind of harm done to the former president. When we come back, I'm going to tell you a piece by Dan McLaughlin at the New York Post. And he says criminal defendants make terrible candidates. The GOP must free itself from Trump. This goes back, well, this has happened numerous times, but this idea of must. I remember Chris Christie used to do that. Christie actually is seeing a little bit of a boost in the poll, but he would always say, we have to, or we must. And most of the time when you have a political talking head, like Bill Kristol, that says this is going to happen, this is guaranteed, it's a must, that type of hyperbole, if you will, normally backfires. Look at Bill Kristol's, specifically, I always go back to him. Look at his track record on that. He originally said way back, 2016, that President Trump wouldn't even make it through the vote in Iowa. That's just one of many very, very wrong predictions. But you got to give people like that, the pundits, credit, who get it wrong so often and still have the confidence to go on TV and write articles about what you must do, what we can't do, what we have to do. So we're going to talk about that. Don't want to run too late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We'll be right back. Thank you again for joining us here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio because of the time difference, because of Women's World Cup Soccer, an exciting match. Because of that time change, we do not have an M.A. Neal Financial Services section of the program this morning, though, of course, we thank M.A. Neal Financial Services. We will tomorrow, though. That's our interview with Tim Colpine, and then on Friday with Steve Shaw Jr. Okay. Oh, by the way, I know I highlighted it at the beginning, but we're going to have a clip from our own Maggie Hall with Big Fox News at 10, so you get a little inside look at yesterday's press conference with Congressman Nick Langworthy. Okay, so Dan McLaughlin at the New York Post is saying that the GOP must free itself from Trump. And he accepts the fact that a lot of, and in his words, the charges are bogus or excessive and overzealous. Many, he even says, concedes, if you will, if not all, are driven by partisan politics and this anger and hatred towards Trump. Even the strongest case about the boxes of classified documents involves charges similar to things that Hillary Clinton got away with. Again, this is Dan McLaughlin. If we're judging the prosecutors and the charges, these things all matter. But when Republican primary voters are deciding whom they should nominate to run for president against Joe Biden, the only proper response to complaints about the fairness of indicting Trump should be, so what? So his thoughts on this is that nominating Trump, and this is his exact words, again, would be a disaster for Republicans. The criminal charges are one of the biggest reasons why. Even if you think that's unfair, it's reality. So I would love to hear your opinion on this, because what he's doing is conceding that this is kind of a weaponization, a political attack using the court systems against the former president, and that it is unfair, that it's excessive, overzealous. These are words he uses. And those charges are playing a major role in why you should not nominate the former president. So doesn't that say that even though all this is wrong, we should accept, and this is Dan McLaughlin, this is why I want your opinion on it, we should accept that and move on. Now, whether you agree with him or not, if you accept his premise that what is happening is wrong, what precedent does that set if you shrug your shoulders and say, okay, they won? Again, accepting his premise that this is wrong, what's happening. What kind of precedent does that set for the future of the weaponization of the court system? I was having a conversation, I won't mention with who, not that I think they would matter, but it's just not fair because I didn't ask. But it was an interesting conversation because we were saying, when Republicans get some type of power, they never use it in the same way as perhaps the Democrats would. And that's that's exactly what this article speaks to, that, yep, they won. This is wrong. Again, if you accept his premise, this is wrong. We just need to move on and find somebody else that can win. again, then where does it end? I mean, that's such a defeatist attitude, or such a, not even put your head in the sand. It's almost as if, well, we'll focus on right now and worry about that later, but we never do worry about that later, and then it becomes an issue again and again and again. So kind of fascinating, the defeatist attitude sometimes of the more established Republicans. Some call them rhinos. I don't know in Dan McLaughlin's case if that is the truth, but they beat us again. It kind of blows my mind. I did receive, and that's why I want to hear your opinion on it. What do you think? Again, accepting his premise, do you think that all this is wrong? That the Republicans should move on? Right. So we have an email from a viewer who weighs in on this. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but every U.S. citizen, and this is a topic we've discussed, every U.S. citizen has the right to question the results of every election. Why not Mr. Trump? Every U.S. citizen has the right to question every stupid, I'll say, idea put out by the U.S. Congress. Why not Mr. Trump? You almost can't find anyone that doesn't hate what this country has become, said the viewer. When I talk to my 30-year-old grandson, he says he will not vote again. Communism at its best, excuse me. Yeah, that's one thing I've been very frustrated with on both parties, and this is why we try to talk about voter registration. We try to get people active in their community, because so many people on both sides have kind of just given up on voting in general. You saw it a little bit with let's bring it to New York State, any kind of excitement over Governor Hochul from the Democrats, so turnout was low. You see it with the Republican Party on numerous scenarios. That's why, and this is a good way to promote it, we want to get you registered to vote if you are not. We talk about the importance of community, the importance of patriotism, the importance of faith, and you can't just sit on the sidelines. So if you want to register to vote, this is a shameless plug, but I will be at the Steuben County Fair on Friday from 2 to 4. Stop by. It's a Republican tent. It's in one of the buildings. You'll find it. You'll see me. Stop by, say hi, and we'll have voter registration information for you there. And that's not Republican or Democrat. You can register whatever party you would like. So stop by, say hi. We can talk about anything you would like. It'd be fun. Now, we've got to take another short break. We've got to play a little catch-up. When we come back, we're going to hear from Maggie Hall and yesterday's news package about the press conference with Congressman Nick Langworthy when we come back. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Heselson studio. So yesterday, Maggie Hall from Big Fox News at 10 and myself traveled to Elmira and caught the press conference with Congressman Nick Langworthy. It was a nice event. Everybody was there. So I thought I would play for you yesterday's news package in case you missed it.
Today, Congressman Langworthy was here at the Chemung County Courthouse to address the migrant crisis that New York State is facing and to directly address Governor Hochul.
New York is facing a health and safety crisis that is a direct result of Democrats' dangerous open border sanctuary city and sanctuary state policies.
Hundreds of thousands of migrant individuals and asylum seekers poured into New York State after the COVID-era Title 42 policy expired earlier this year.
New York City, the governor herself told me a few months ago that 40 to 50% of New York City's hotels were full of migrants that are in this country illegally.
The congressman was joined by Representative Chris Friend, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, Elmira Mayor Daniel Mandel, and Senator Tom O'Mara, all who are in support of the H.R. 2 bill.
It's time to stop the